Alright, this meeting and all the meetings of this council are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the press in accordance with Wisconsin statutes, so the citizenry may be aware of the time and place and agenda of this meeting. We'll start off with a call to order and a roll call.
Nadowski,
Here.
Kemp,
Here.
Rasmussen.
Here.
Alright, next we'll look to have a motion to approve the minutes from the May 4th and the joint finance and public works meeting on May 11th. Minutes.
So move.
Second.
I'll second.
And we'll go ahead and take a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Alright, that passes.
The second was Scott on the,
Yes.
okay. Thank you.
Number 3, citizens appearances. We have no citizens here. Number 4 is discussion and possible action on the City Hall technologies upgrade.
Yes, this will be, I promise really quick on this one. At the last month's city council meeting, you had identified Heartland as the primary technology vendor for the City Hall project. And that was made official, and I believe the date of the meeting was May 18th. We had about a week and a half to get information back from them on a formal proposal or more formalized proposal on what they perceive to be technology costs for the boardroom AV, for the door security and camera security, and then also for the network cabling. It's anticipated that after we've met with Heartland twice over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, that they'll probably have more formalized numbers this week. And so the question, or my request would be, next week, Monday night, you have the Public Works Committee meeting. And I believe 2 of you are already at that committee.
So just really be up to.
And so the thought would be, between now and maybe the next week or two, is if there's a possibility to get a special meeting together to take up the proposal for the technology for City Hall. And the reason we ask on that is because there's a couple things that had come up that we had really narrowed down on. So in the past, we were asking for qualifications, asking for general proposals. And now we're to the point where we're looking at the police interview room, what type of technology needs to be in that, the different meeting rooms, conference rooms, what type of technology do we need there. And so those are a couple of items that Heartland didn't specifically get us proposals on, but they wanted to make sure that they at least added those figures in there so that we had an idea on them. But like I said, it's been probably about a week and a half that we've been working with Heartland here. They think they'll have good numbers this week, and the thought is, whether you had it tonight or whether you have it next week, both would be a recommendation that would go to June 15th for final approval, because that's the next council meeting. So one of the things on my end that I would ask is, knowing that we'll probably have info this week, it might be good to look into adding on next Monday night, if that's something that can work.
I mean, I'll be here, so I'm good with it. It would just be more so up to Mike, because Mike would have to come in.
Yeah.
Me and Scott are already gonna be here, so.
Yeah.
And one of the benefits there would be, Heartland is planning on coming to the meeting, and we'll have Thad at the Public Works meeting. So as the project construction manager, having him here too might work out pretty good.
How do you have them breaking it down, by like room or by items?
We've basically got it, just like the RFQ was put together, where it's boardroom, audio visual, get sort of a proposal there. Now in your packet, you have the numbers that Heartland had given with the RFQ, which were all like
Right.
not to exceed numbers. And again, they were generalized numbers. But they're probably looking into boardroom and meeting room audio visuals. For the police interview room, they'll probably put a little bit more emphasis on that, just because it's an item that we could probably get grant money for. Through the U.S. Department of Agriculture, they have a rural development program. So we'll probably keep that one split out just so that we can keep track of what that cost might be. The other item that's out there is for the community room or the community center, like a basic hearing, like a microphone with some basic speakers. That's something that they're looking at. One of the other items they may come and ask you guys about would be, do we want to have any type of projector or TV screen down in that community room? And we never really had planned on putting that in there, but we thought we would check. Those are the things they'll probably get into with you guys.
Probably should wire it up with cable or something.
Yeah, and the big thing would be right above that room, in the boardroom, we would pretty much have everything powered up, so it wouldn't be a whole lot more to just, punch it down onto that room. But Now that we got them on board, it's something that we
I
could
think
sit
you
down with
want a
Heartland
projector
too.
of some sort, just so that way somebody, if you're having an event there, I'm sure people are gonna want to use slides or, you know, something like that. I would assume.
You're talking in the meeting room?
No, like
In the community room?
Yeah.
I don't know, I think a 50-inch TV in there for the guys to go in and watch Packer games on Sunday would be pretty nice.
Yeah.
Not.
Well, we'll take a look at that, but I think, you know, I sort of took the liberty with Heartland to say if we could get those figures this week, that would be helpful. So with that, there's not really much to update other than we've been working with Heartland, and like I said, now we're getting to the details on. One of the other pieces we're looking at is for that front lobby, which we had anticipated would be open 24 hours a day, that vestibule would. What Heartland wanted to look at was for the police or for myself or somebody in the offices, after hours, if somebody comes in, to have a camera installed there so that you can see, no matter where you are in the building, who's there, and then have a two-way audio that you could talk to somebody if you needed to, or you don't have to get them in the building. But those are kind of that's the level we're getting to now, is really getting down to figure out all the technology there.
Okay.
So those are probably the changes, the specifics I just gave you are the things that are, Heartland will probably say have changed a little bit from when they first gave a little bit of an estimated quote. So are you able to determine whether you'd like to meet again next Monday night, or is it something we should check on? I guess with you guys, you know, you're on Public Works, if you're planning on coming already, and I don't know,
Mike,
not to
you
put
have
you on
any
the spot,
issues with
Mike, but,
Yeah, I'm not, I have to.
Okay.
I don't think it's a problem yet.
okay.
How long do you think it'll take Heartland to kind of break it down? I mean, because I think the meeting was scheduled, I don't remember if it was 6 or 6:30, but do we need to start that earlier?
It's hard to say.
I mean, if they're
It's
gonna
hard
go
to
into
say.
the detail of all the nuts and bolts, it might take a little while.
Yeah, but are we gonna be making recommendations?
If you can, it might not be the worst thing.
So it's gonna be a while.
Yeah, it's gonna be a while, I think.
Yep, I could see it.
Yeah,
So, I don't know, what time do we have that scheduled for, do you know, by chance?
I'd have to look. It might be 6 or 6:30, but I mean, we can move those with Public Works.
Yeah, Public Works is 6 as well, on Monday, the 8th.
Yeah, we can move that around if we need to.
That might take a little time on that one.
Sure. But the hope would be and I'll get into this, but City Hall, the construction is slated to start July 7th. So a decision on June 15th leaves us about 2-3 weeks where Heartland and Immel as the general and Cedar can get together on, you know, finalizing their plans on the cabling. The cabling's gonna be pretty straightforward, I think, but you know, what are we cabling for and what are we gonna throw in the new building, so. But let's plan on probably having a special meeting for that, if that's good. And anytime next week, even leading up to the city council meeting if we need it.
That's right, do that.
So, but the thought would be on June 15th is when you'd make decisions, hopefully, on
Okay.
scope.
So for the technology thing, you're thinking about having the full council?
Well, the full council would have to vote on it on June 15th either way. So between now and June 15th, we'd have to have a committee meeting to review, to make a
Might
recommendation
just
to the
wanna
council.
Give a heads up if we're gonna have Heartland in for the one on Monday.
Mhm.
Just give a heads up to all the different council members, so that way. if
Yep.
they
Well,
wanna
I was
come-
gonna say, if we're, you know, when Scott mentioned, you know, if we're gonna have to make a decision, why don't we just have everybody here and make the decision right away?
Well, it'd only be a week difference, I don't know if that makes a
Yeah.
difference for you or not.
And it depends, June 15th will be the night that we're hoping we get a vote regardless. It's just a matter of when does the committee review it. Now, if we can't get everybody here, the benefit of filming this is that we could point to a specific time on the committee meeting for those that can't make it. You know,
I just figure if Heartland's here, it'd be nice, just so we can save on some of the back and forth when it comes to council on the 15th.
yeah,
Save all of our time.
But I mean, if you're having him here, and I've been in meetings like that before,
yeah.
don't just have a couple people, because then the other people are sitting there kind of wondering what went on.
Yeah.
This way that they can ask that question that somebody else might not ask, the Heartland, or vice
Yeah.
versa.
Yeah, because we got a lot of times where it comes up is, we don't know the answer and the person
Right.
isn't here. by that
That's
time.
why I said if, to me, when you're gonna make decisions, big decisions like that,
Yeah.
it's probably better off to have.
So the benefit
The
could be
full
that it's at the Public Works meeting already. You have Bruce as a member of the Public Works Committee
Yep.
with you four and the mayor. The two that you would basically be asking to show up then would be Shaney and Nick, and I don't know that that would be a big problem to get them to say.
I would think they're gonna be interested in it
Yeah.
anyway.
So we could, give the
Yeah,
invite to them
yeah.
that way too, and then, but the big thing would be knowing that June 15th is when we expect to have a final,
Okay.
full council decision,
Okay.
okay?
Well, if you're gonna invite them though, I'd just make that decision now. That way you don't have to worry about it down the road. Otherwise it drags on, then we gotta hear this again.
Or,
So we just hear it once.
If they're here
and
to
vote
hear
on
it, if they're here, if everyone is here to hear Heartland speak
It'd be beneficial.
at one time,
It'd be beneficial.
yeah.
that's a good Kickstarter, because they may have to come back again if there's questions that arise from that
And they could come to the
next
city
meeting.
council meeting and answer that.
They could.
Which would be good. So that's a good thought process too, because then it gives us another opportunity if people.
To
have-
rehash, to wrap your head around what they just said, cause I'm not gonna know what shit from Shinola on that electronic, on all that stuff, so. I have to
Yeah.
rely on someone smarter than me to
We could,
figure out
so
what we
if,
need.
if we put this together with Public Works next week Monday, and then the following Monday approve it, it would run exactly the same way last month. We reviewed the City Hall wastewater treatment plant projects with a joint meeting with nearly everybody there, and then the next night, that Monday night, Mr. Mayor, when he brought up the topics, he said, well, we've talked about this, and,
Yeah.
it
Well, we put 'em up in
ran pretty
October.
well, but I mean, Heartland, for the amount of money we're probably looking at spending with them, and the amount of money that we've already authorized with the server, it would be nothing for them to send somebody out both nights if we needed it, but for sure next Monday night,
Yeah,
so,
yeah, we can always determine at that meeting whether or not we need another
yeah,
follow-up.
yep. Okay,
That would be perfect. All right, next up, we have discussion, possible action on Microsoft Office email licensing.
yes, so this is probably one other item that if we're going to have the special meeting, I will request that we hold that one off to the special meeting too. That's a discussion that we had probably starting 4 or 5 months ago on, there's two items. One is with the email. And when you go to a new server, we probably have to get a new email solution. And the two solutions that were out there were physically buying in addition to our server, or buying subscriptions to Microsoft Office 365, which is a cloud-based, it's a product that you don't purchase, but you lease it basically. And with that, we also don't have Microsoft Office licenses right now. We don't have a bulk license. And over the years, the city has probably spent more money than it should have, because every time we went and bought a new computer, we also had to go buy $280 worth of Microsoft Office, like off the shelf. And if you would buy that one time and that computer would go out, technically the next time you bought a computer, you had to go buy that same box again. The problem with that is that, number one, we probably spent more than we should have, and number two, as computers come up for renewal and as Microsoft Office has been renewed, we run into a situation where some of us are running Office 2010, some of us are running Office 2013, and it's not a huge difference, but
enough to
it's a
make
little bit of a difference, so
It is.
it's more of an inconvenience, especially when you're paying more money than you probably should anyway. So the other item we looked at was something called volume licensing, which you could basically buy a license for a set, 2010 Office or 2013, and then it doesn't matter how many computers you have so much, you just get them all covered under the license. If I had a computer and it bonked out, if I went and bought a new computer, I would still be covered with Microsoft Office.
So it doesn't go by the number of seats you want.
It,
On
it
it.
goes basically by the number, well, seats, but
Right.
knowing that my one seat has one computer regardless. Does that make sense? So if my computer goes away, well, I still have my coverage for my Microsoft Office.
Right, right.
So the pricing on that for a volume license, so one-time payment to just get that license is roughly $3,000. But if we would go the Office 365 route, the lease cost includes email, and it also includes the newest versions of Microsoft Office. The difference is when you buy a volume one-time purchase, license, you buy like 2013 and that's what you have. But when you're with 365, say you have 2013, well, when a new version comes out, maybe 3 to 5 years later, you automatically get put on the new version. The problem we're gonna run into, or the dilemma before us, is to buy a physical addition to the server for email and to buy a physical volume license is a fixed fee, and we're looking at roughly $11,000, and with the volume licensing, Heartland is clarifying whether or not that volume licensing was in the 11,000. So it's 11 to 14 is what we're looking at to buy physical products, but that's a one-time fee.
Yeah.
The alternative for 365 would be you're leasing, and every year you're paying roughly $3,200 to $3,300. So there's a point in either 4 or 5 years where you break even, and the discussion then is going to be, if we buy the one-time products that we own, are they going to last us 5 years? And now the thought is they'll last us at least 5 years, so it might be a good decision to just to pay more upfront as opposed to a monthly or a yearly lease. But we're clarifying the volume licensing price. We don't have it completely figured out yet tonight. And then working with Heartland, basically, like I said, what you're down to is, do you buy and have an upfront cost, or do you lease the products? Yeah.
Either one of these make a difference on whether or not the employees then could work from home or access things.
The way, I mean, I think they do a little bit, but the big thing is gonna be with our new server, we're going to increase our ability to remote into our accounts. So, and the big thing with hourly employees is you try to not have them working from home.
I'm
But,
just thinking like-
but the reality is, like myself and Jerry being salaried employees, well, I've got my computer up right here now, and,
But you have to tap
We're
into a
logging in quite a bit.
VPN and to get into your
yep,
server, right?
yeah. So any difference there between the two is probably offset by the fact that the server that we're getting and the new technology we're putting in our building is going to be upgraded to kind of account for that.
Okay.
So we'll have an updated amount of information. Really, all that's gonna come down to is it $11,000 or $14,000 for the one-time costs? And the difference there is going to be your payback of either 4 or 5 years. The thought is, the fixed fees are going to be probably more reasonable, but now it may take 4 years before you break even on it, but the thought is it'll keep, you'll still save money starting in year 5. But we'll get to that next week, if that's okay.
Okay. All right.
And that, again, like I said, the thought with holding some of these items is that either tonight or next week, they'll still go to June 15th for approval, so. Should be good.
I'll just say that I will not vote for Office 365.
Cloud-based updating.
We have it
Do you?
at work, and I've talked to probably 5 or 6 different girls in different offices, and they hate it.
Yeah.
I even talked to our IT
What
person.
is the issue with it? Or what
Yeah,
issue?
I don't know anything about it. I don't
They-
use it. We don't use it.
Is it just doing like constant updates where it's messing things up, or?
It messes up a lot, and you can't get in. You'll be in it, and then all of a sudden, you'll be
Kicked out?
kicked out, and then you gotta start up over again, and I know, and it takes quite a bit to get to, and now they're switching us over to Microsoft Outlook.
So off of 365 and on to Outlook,
Yeah,
which Outlook is what we have right now, and that's the one-time fixed fee. When you add onto your server, that's what you're adding is Exchange
Yeah. just-
to be able to run Outlook off of that, but yeah.
and it's a lot easier, and they're all
It
happy
is.
with, they're all a lot happier with that. But even our person that's in charge of our IT, I had her the other day. She's into my computer and she's in Mount Horeb, and we're going back and forth, and I says, do you really like 365? And she said, no, I hate it. She said, I wish we wouldn't have it.
One other small concern that we've been looking into, and it's with 365 being cloud-based as opposed to having Exchange and Outlook where you own all the equipment and have it in-house by you. One of the thoughts there is with 365, some communities have run into issues with archiving email. So, and when I get into that, what I mean is there's two different layers of 365, and one is the full-blown, you get all the office products in your email, and what we've looked at for that is that it's roughly $200 a month for the employees to run, to have 365, but then the pared down version is less than half of that, and we figured we could use that for elected officials, where you'd get your email, and then for the office, Word, Excel, those types of things, that you would have like a read-only, where you couldn't do anything in it, but you could read items. The thought is you save money on that, and that's how we get down to $3,300 a year, but the storage on the lower level might not be adequate for what we have with state law, where we have to hold on to those records for a certain period of time, or sometimes indefinitely. And so there is a little bit of a concern there too, that we're still looking into, because there's some communities, I've heard names, but we're not in position to go
Yeah.
blow the whistle, because I haven't heard it for sure, but I've thought that some communities maybe are willing to risk it. And the problem we have is that we do get open records requests, and we do have situations that are, people want to get records, and if we'll never be caught in a position where we lose something in a manner like this. If, like with 365, if we have an idea that we might not be able to keep something, we would never recommend that you approve that, because chances are if we ever tried to risk it, we would end up getting caught, and we wouldn't want to risk it anyway. So that's another little item that's out there, but it looks like, especially on your point too, Mike, it probably makes sense for us to not go with 365. But we'll get there next week on it.
Okay.
The good news is Heartland will be there too if you got any other extra questions, that they can kind of fill you in on that too.
Right?
Next up, we got an update on the financial software upgrade project.
Yes, this is an item that I think I've talked about as long as I've been working here, because the software we're on was upgraded right about the time when I started.
If you can call it an upgrade.
And it's been problematic, I guess is a good way to put it. But we do have, there's 4 companies that we looked at, a 5th if you count the current company we have, with the current product we have, that we would not be interested in. But we're down to probably 2, which are both companies that the auditors had recommended. And one is Workhorse, which is based out of Wausau. One is Civic Systems, which is based out of Madison. And it's owned by Baker Tilly, which is an auditing firm. We, over the last 2 weeks, have had both companies come to City Hall. We set up in the lobby, I think, Jack, I think you've been in maybe for one or both of them, but basically we had both companies come in and put a projector on the wall, run through their products with me, Becky, and Katrina sitting there too. So we've had run-throughs on the products, we've been given references, City Weyauwega, Winneconne, and there's 3-4 others that are close to us that are on one product or the other. Right now, really what it's down to is Workhorse is more of a basic layout. It's a product that'll get done what we need done, but it looks pretty simple, which is a good thing sometimes, and it's also a lot cheaper than what Civic Systems would be. And I want to say Workhorse is somewhere in the $30,000 range for an investment in the first year, and Civic Systems is upwards of the mid-50s. Both companies have said that they will allow us to either pay over 2 or 3 years at 0% interest. We could pay some of it now, and in next year's budget pay the rest of it. But with Civic Systems, they have the ability not only to have financial software, but we can also add on different types of project management, a dashboard, which would be a pretty cool thing where you can relay out your financial information on our website or to the public, and John Doe, regular guy on the street, would be able to look at it and see like a simple type of report.
Do you have modules, other modules that you can purchase?
Yes, there's
to
quite
add
a bit with Civic Systems. They also have asset management. There's a whole bunch of things that you can add on to
Is
it.
that 50 then, just the basic?
That's for the financial package. I think there's the next page, either 3 or 4 in that pack, gives you like asset management or a couple others that they put an option. Maybe it's the last page. Gives you a little bit of a breakdown on the cost, but I don't know that we're ready for sure to give you a recommendation on which way to go. But what I can tell you is both of them look like they'll do what we need. Both of them have been recommended by our auditors. So our auditors didn't come back and say pick one or the other, but they said look into both. And I've also gotten some feedback from our auditors on the usability of each. And when I say usability, what I'm looking at there is, you know, with Katrina and Becky, what's their comfort level, being the people that will use this on a daily basis. And we've got some more conversations probably this week that we'll have there.
The Civic one, it looks like, I'm just looking at it, I'm not sure exactly, page 3 there. So the 58 is just the first year without support, it says.
Yes.
And then they got the different figures in there, so really, I guess you wouldn't have to pay the annual fee the first year, but
Right.
the other fees are quite a bit,
Yes.
so.
The other topic that we're looking into is the fact that workhorses, I don't want to call it simple, but it's simpler to look into. The problem we have maybe with workhorse is that the reports that get spit out look like the reports we get from our current, sorry about that. They look like the reports we get from fund balance, and the reports we get from fund balance aren't real easy for me to try to customize so that when we give you a report, you can read it pretty easily. But with civic systems, you have the ability to build all sorts of different types of reports too. Now, whether that's worth $30,000, that's something that I'm inclined to say it's probably not, but I think we're still building a recommendation this week yet for you guys. The goal then would be, hopefully June 15th, we make a recommendation on one or the other, and then it would probably be about 3 months worth of transitioning to a new software provider, and we'd hope by October, November, we can run 2 months parallel with our current program and with the new one, and then for January 1st, we'll turn on just the new one. So we're still sort of in line with getting a new software package. And I should say the other two software packages that we looked at didn't offer all of the pieces that we need. So they didn't have payroll, accounts payable, utility billing. They didn't have everything that we would need. So those, and the other pieces that our auditors had recommended too, and those two are the two that we focused on out of those 4 that we had, so. Are there any questions on that? It's not really a recommendation yet, but it looks, yeah.
Utility billing, that's also an additional cost add-on to the 58, it looks like.
I'd have to take a look back through that again.
Page 4, I know you guys are working on it, but.
Yep,
It
yep.
looks like there's quite a few.
Yeah, so I gave you those figures so that you had an idea what we're looking at right now,
Yeah,
so, yeah,
okay.
okay? And that's an item, not that we're shipping everything through to next Monday night, but knowing that if we had another special meeting next week, that's probably something we would ship through.
This isn't
Next
gonna be
Monday.
a decision based on dollars and cents, this is gonna be a decision based on your expertise with your people coming forth and saying, this is the tools we need for now and to grow into the future.
Yep.
That's what we're gonna base our decision on, is what you tell us.
That's a fair
I agree.
way to put it, because the program we have now is not,
We just have to
set up
justify
very
the
well
need
for
with
us,
the
so.
cost, so that way we can make sure everybody understands.
yep,
I'm sure there's good reasons for it, otherwise they wouldn't sell it.
Exactly.
All right.
okay.
Next is the update on the City Logo clothing program.
Yeah, just a quick update. We did contact EDI about getting a variety of sizes and samples of shirts so that we could get them, number one, size for staff, because at the last council meeting you authorized purchase for staff. And then also, while we have all those sizes, we would probably size up everybody on the city council and the other employees too, so we got an idea for sizing for the future. But we did order those samples. We did give an idea to EDI on what we would be looking at with a first purchase, knowing that we'd have to get it sized up first. And the update is that we're waiting on the samples to get shipped to us, and then we'll have those
Okay.
fairly soon. Okay?
Next, we'll be looking for a motion to approve checks 31459 through check 31510 totaling $131,655.21 in the monthly financial statement.
I'll approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
We'll do a roll call on that one then. Yep. Nadowski,
Aye.
Rasmussen,
Aye.
Kemp.
Aye.
Carried with all ayes.
All right, next we'll look for the administrator's report.
Skip 9, go 10.
No, and you do, this will be quick, I promise, I promise. You do have I have a summary sheet that I had given you, give you a quick summary in your packet on every item. And at the bottom of that, on page 2 into page 3, it's roughly a page-long update on where we're at with the City Hall project and what the timeline is for temporary accommodations. And I'll run down this real quick because it's in bullet points, and then that'll be my report. We have contacted with Backwoods Construction, which is the preferred vendor for Steve Levy, for 123 East Main. He did start last week, and between 12:30 and 2:30, he had pulled all the flooring and carpeting out. The tiling that was in there, you could have taken a pen and slid it underneath and popped the tiles up, so that was very interesting to take a look at. But they did start to work on that property, which is good. They did take out discolored ceiling tiles, which they had found basically there were vents and things that had been poked into the roof, and wherever there was something that was put into the roof, it was leaking, and it was leaking onto the ceiling tiles, so they're looking at patching that up too. We are going to be taking advantage of a Focus on Energy program, and it basically is going to replace all of the lights in that building, and it's kind of an insane amount of lighting fixtures that are in there, but I thought it was like 28 or 30 of them, and they all have the fluorescent bulbs in there. But for about $170, we'll get all of that replaced for energy efficient lighting, which is really good. The new walls would be then the next project at 123 East Main. It'll be a wall for the entrance, and then there will be a wall, after speaking with Heartland, we'll put in a wall where the server's gonna be, instead of putting in a cabinet that'll secure that, so that the police won't have any worries with the Department of Justice, knowing that our server is secure. Even though we're gonna have an open concept office, we'll still have the secured server area. So that should be in the next 2 weeks. We're looking at new walls. I did meet with Kyle Tews. We met with his electrical and HVAC subcontractors. And for the life of me, off the top of my head, I don't remember the electrical. I can see the guy, but I don't remember his name. But they do work. He's working, I think Wesley's gonna take a look at the heating in that building first, because they've serviced it over the years. Those electrical HVAC are also being looked at in the next 2 weeks. We were able to contact different moving companies on that furniture, and probably the most reasonable, the company that said that they felt good about getting the furniture, about getting it in the time that we're looking for, and transporting it, taking it apart, the other way around, taking it apart, transporting it, putting it back together, would be 2 men in a truck, and they had quoted us just under $1,000 to get that done, which is a good thing. The one caveat they put in there was that potentially with those cubicles, depending on how complex that is to take it apart and put them back together, it might be a couple extra man hours for 2 people, 2 guys with their truck. And then a couple more hours, it would be roughly $120 an hour that they may charge. So it still may end up being $1,500. I mean, that's still probably a good deal to get furniture brought to us, insured, and the value on that is, again, up to $60,000, $70,000 is what we're looking at for furniture that's donated. We also talked to 2 Men in a Truck about, and all the other moving companies, about just getting moving boxes for City Hall, so when we start to pack up items. We talked about 30 to 40, either 1.5 or 3 cubic foot boxes. And 2 Men in a Truck, as part of their quote to move the furniture, had quoted us that they would supply those boxes for no cost. That we could potentially get them within a week here. So that would be good.
Very good.
The coordinating a date with 2 Men in a Truck to move the furniture, and also with the gentleman from Johnson Insurance. We've kind of gone back and forth over the next couple of weeks. And what it looks like right now is that we're looking at coordinating Monday, June 22nd to be the move date to get the furniture, and then the thought would be we would set it up in the temporary office, because I believe I think all the desks would be used in the temporary office. And Jack and I went, last week, I walked through the office with them and sort of told them what the layout would be. One of the other topics that we're looking into, which I think I've got further down here, and I do, about renting a semi-trailer, I'll get to that one. But it looks like June 22nd should be a good date to get the furniture in there, because when the rest of the schedules look like in the next 2 weeks, we'll have the flooring, electrical, HVAC all put together. You know, technically, all that stuff should be ready and waiting to get the furniture moved in. So that should be pretty good. We've talked to Heartland and to Charter about moving our internet and phone services, our internet and phone systems, and setting up the new server that you had authorized in the new building. And what it looks like is we're lining up for June 29th, June 30th to get those services completed. I'm looking at roughly a 3-day window where we may look to shut down the city hall part from walk-in traffic. So the phones will still be set up, we'll still answer phone calls, but we may not be open to the public. And the thought with that is that, you know, maybe we'll get 3 days then where we can take down our email and network, get it set up in the new building, get everything, all of our computers, you know, hopefully by June 29th and 30th, everything's been packed up except for the bare essentials in the office. And over those 3 days, then we could have, during regular work hours, public works and then office staff and police officers move stuff over to the temporary office. It looks like June 29th, 30th, and July 1st are probably a good window to get that done, because we've been aiming for roughly July 1st to get out of the building, knowing that that gives us a week before construction starts. So there's a little bit of a floating schedule there. The problem, though, is that knocking out the first 3 days of the week, either closing completely to walk-ins or completely to the public, that would be Monday through Wednesday. Friday's already a holiday where we won't have any employees working and we'll already be closed. And in that situation, the only day we'd be open would be Thursday, July 2nd. So, not sure if that's the best idea, but I do know that July 3rd is probably out as a day where we're closed, where we might be able to move, because for hourly employees, we can't really just ask them to volunteer their time, especially when it's on a holiday and when they're doing work for the city. So it's probably not the best thing for Friday, July 3rd to have a moving day, unless myself and the chief would like to work. And I can tell you that I'll probably already be working, because July 3rd is the fireworks event at the fairgrounds, so we'll already be
I think it'd be best off
in
just
work
shutting
mode.
it down
Yeah.
for the whole week to make sure you got it done right.
I'll give you a better update on July or June 15th, because that's the next council meeting, and that'll be when I'm talking about 2 weeks for electrical and all the renovations.
I'm
That'll
saying
get us about to then,
if
and
you
we'll
make
get a
the-
better idea.
If you make the decision soon, at least then we can notify people and post it places so that they know,
Yeah.
then it really shouldn't be an issue.
And the way that this move is set up, I'm taking a little bit of a second priority with the rest of what I cover to the police department, because as we take down the network and email, obviously the police department can't be out for very long. So we're thinking that it'll be less than an hour that their email may be down, and that's probably the worst case scenario with this whole transition. So we're gonna make sure all their systems are up and running, and then when Heartland's in, then they're gonna start adding on the rest of the city stuff. So that might be where the 2 to 3 days being closed might help too, because we may just have those things down for a couple days. Again, Friday, July 3rd is the city fireworks event. That starts at 6:30. Monday, July 6th then. If we're not all completely moved into the temporary space by the 2nd or the 3rd, Monday, July 6th is sort of an extra day, because construction on the current city hall isn't set until July 7th, the next day. So, you know, we have a little bit of an extra weekend or that extra day on the 6th. And then the other item that's on the very bottom of this report then is that I've sort of considered, if we're looking at the new furniture being set up in the temporary space, and we're packing up all of our stuff and moving it over to the temporary space, there's probably gonna be a lot of equipment, furniture, desks, things that we don't move into the temporary building that we'll have to store somewhere. Because what we're moving is, we're moving out of a 2-story building into a 1-story building. Even though it's temporary, it's still a move. And one of the thoughts we had was, you know, maybe we could rent pods The problem with pods is that, you know, once you get them, they sort of sit, and you have to park them somewhere or sit them somewhere.
Right.
The other thing is that they're probably not temperature or humidity controlled, so there's a lot of things that you probably can't put in there with paperwork and things like that. But one of the thoughts I had was to rent maybe a semi-trailer, park it behind City Hall and put stuff in there. You know, either we hang on to it until we can move back into the building, the renovated building, or we try to sell some of those items, or if we can't sell them, somebody can hook up a truck, take them away.
Put it all in there and close the door and then take a blind bid on the whole works.
Yeah,
without-
yeah. That's one of the thoughts I had now in talking to the mayor. He had taken that a little bit further and said, well, you know, the semi-trailer probably isn't the worst idea, but maybe you don't want to park it downtown where we're going to have construction set up and limited parking already. And his thought was, without giving away the location for anybody to vandalize or whatever, but he thought, you know, there might be an off-site location where we could just park it inconspicuously, filled with stuff too, so. And I think that's a very
Think of
good
a few
idea that we'll look
spots.
into. Yeah,
A few spots out there.
yeah.
Sure.
So that's sort of what we're looking at too. You know, the other thing we could do is we move completely out of the City Hall building, and once we determine there's stuff that we don't want to use or won't use, we could open up the City Hall building as it sits today and have sort of an auction or a sale right there too, but we'll still, even though we got a lot of brand new good furniture that'll be donated, you know, that doesn't mean that everything we own now, we have to get rid of though either. You know, we could probably repurpose a lot of that stuff.
Probably a lot of stuff could be used, yeah.
Yeah. The problem is, you know, like I said, we're moving out of a 2-story building into a 1-story building, and we may have to look at a storage option for maybe 10, 11 months. So that's the update. I can tell you that when we first talked about awarding City Hall's construction, and when Immel had mentioned that they could start July 7th, I sort of freaked out a little bit thinking that it was a lot. But as we go kind of line by line through here, construction, heating, electrical, Heartland Charter, 2 men in a truck, everything's sort of lining up. And everything's lining up where we have a week or a week and a half of wiggle room to still stay on track with moving out by like July before we have to start digging up City Hall. So it seems like it's come together. I do know that the $15,000 that you had authorized me to spend on an interim space is going to help, because we meet tonight. I guess we would meet next Monday, and then we would meet as a council on the 15th. Well, between now and the end of the month, there's going to be a lot of stuff that'll come up. Nothing that's, you know, that we don't expect already. And when I came up with a figure for you guys, we came up with a figure knowing that there was something put into that. But it's been, it'll be pretty good. Things are coming together. Knock on, this isn't wood, but you know what I mean.
Yep, yep, it really is.
So that's all I've got for a report then, other than the other items that we already talked about.
All right.
Okay.
Next, we're looking to set the July finance meeting date and time. The first Monday's the 6th, but I know you said that's kind of your.
Well, so, and I thought I had this on here, I did have it in my schedule, I didn't run that through. So the thought would be
We do it at the 10th.
the night of July 6th then, in the temporary office space, we're putting together a corner with a big wooden table for like conference meetings or conference rooms, so we could have meetings in there. And the thought would be that Monday, July 6th then, because we have to be out by July 7th, well, we'd hopefully be all set up in the temporary space, that, you know, potentially we could have the meeting Monday the 6th and then plan on having it in the temporary space.
Okay.
That way you can look through it, see where we're at, what we got, and maybe even consider,
Is this gonna be something?
maybe
that's
all the
gonna-
committee room meetings could
Is
be
this
there.
something that's gonna have to be joint again, do we think, with Public Works?
No, I don't think, it should be pretty good, because by that time, I mean, we could invite everybody to come in for the meeting, but we shouldn't have a whole lot, you know, most of the action that's left on City Hall is gonna be probably technology, which we're hoping in the next 2 weeks will
Clear up already.
clear up, yep.
Okay. So it sounds like July 6th, 6 PM?
Should work for me,
Sure.
okay?
All right, next we'll be looking for a motion to go to closed session pursuant to 19.85 Wisconsin statute consideration of employment, promotion, compensation, and or performance evaluation data of any city employee who is subject to the jurisdiction or authority of the council. The reason for the closed session is to review the city health insurance program for 2016 budget and administrative goals. The committee may choose to reconvene an open session at the completion of the closed session in order to take action on the items from the closed session.
I make a motion, we go into closed session.
Okay.
Take a roll call.
Nadowski,
Aye.
Rasmussen,
Aye.
Kempf.
All right.
It's 8 o'clock right on the dot.